What's going on, everybody? We're back with another episode of Review the Review, and this week we are going over House of the Dragon, Episode 2, The Rogue Prince. Now, in the Episode 1 review that we did, I had mentioned that I was iffy about the show, and to an extent, I still am, but from just these two episodes alone, especially this week's episode, I feel incredibly more confident that at least season one of this show will be good. Whether seasons two and three are going to be good or not, that's, a different conversation. But this week, we don't have as many reviews as we did before, but we're still going to check these out. Well, that is spoilers, so I don't want to go over that. Another absolute banger. 9 out of 10. Honestly, really impressed with the show so far. This episode was amazing. Even without real action, it was a great episode. That is true. It did not have like any fight scenes, any battles, any like action. Well, slight action, but like nothing like what we saw in the first episode with the those knights fighting each other at the tournament. Clear showcase of the writing talent they have now, only matched by the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. With a limited budget, Game of Thrones had to stand out without flashy action, so there was a real need to write smart and engaging dialogue. House of the Dragon did not have that need, but takes after its predecessor when it comes to its writing. Facts. That is, I 100% agree with that. Pacing does feel right, not too fast, not too slow. Characters are built upon in a clever and meaningful way. Even though the book lacked concrete details on this, the writers managed to add something that feels natural. We have a 10 out of 10 here. After the absolute mad dash final season of Game of Thrones, I was a bit mixed on. I was a bit main with this show. After watching the first episode, I can say that my fear is gone. I feel like we've read that one before. The episode shows potential. The episode had its moments. It took me back to the first season. Yeah, so that's a common sentiment that I'm seeing is that a lot of these episodes, or this episode, a lot of the stuff I saw online from other places was that this episode really brought back like that old feel. This one's a 4 out of 10. Nothing interesting here, just another family drama show. Was keeping my hopes up, but it looks dark now. Endless boring conversations without a single interesting character. I disagree with that. Tyrion brought more to the table by himself than the entire cast of the House of the Dragons put together. I disagree with this because Daemon Targaryen is a character, and in this episode, you really start to feel every single time he's on screen, he takes over the entire show. Like every time the camera pans and we're shown Daemon Targaryen, the feel instantly changes. The show feels heavier. And another thing that this episode does really well, though, is setting up multiple, like, multiple different events that need to be handled. So they're setting up, for those of you who don't already know, the show is about the Blackfire Rebellion. So they're setting that up. Then they have the crab feeder was introduced in this episode, but not like in a way where they really showed him. They mention him multiple times, and then there's a couple flash scenes that are like short, but showing what the crab feeder's doing with torturing prisoners on the beach by feeding them to like nailing them to like check hedgehogs and which are those like if you've ever seen pictures of beach defenses, it's those like metal posts like crossbeam things on a beach, but in the show they're wooden. He's like nailing prisoners to them and letting the crabs feast on them. And then without giving away spoilers for the episode, there's a couple other things that happen in this episode specifically that really set up more of the story. So I wouldn't say it's nothing interesting. I think for me, it's some pretty interesting stuff. As for the story, there's not much of one, no mystery, no different story arcs, just family drama about succession. This episode was drawn out, rather poorly written dialogue, and it just became painful to watch. The only thing that is slightly alright is the production, but then again, it's not hard to film dialogue. All in all, my conclusion is that this show will just be another cash grab. Damn shame. I don't know if it's a cash grab. I wouldn't say that. I think they're putting a lot of effort in, which is appreciated. Um, but I think they have to play a bit more carefully. And just because of how season 8 ended, they have to win back the fan base. So I think they're playing it safe by doing this story, and especially a story that, if you've read the books, you know the books are an unreliable narrator and it's a false history for the most part. Like, none of it is confirmed. So to take that storyline, um, is a safer bet too, because there's not as much, oh, the book said this, so you have to do this because George is there, so he could say, well, no, that character's perspective in the book said that, but we can do this, this, and this, which helps them creatively to just make this story that is something fans can get drawn back into. More engaging so far than the first season of Game of Thrones. Mm, I don't want to give spoilers, but I want to see what he said. All right, just taking that at face value, that seems more like a recency bias, especially like Game of Thrones season 1. The budget wasn't the same, the hype wasn't the same, the fan passion wasn't the same. It was book fans going into season 1 that were hyped, and then season 1 turned out to be so good that people got drawn into it for season 2. But I would not say that this so far is better than season 1 of Game of Thrones. How much time is from King's Landing to Dragonstone? So here's something that gets brought up. Time in this show. We have 2 episodes that take place 6 months apart. Episode 1, and then 6 months later is episode 2. So there's a scene traveling from King's Landing to Dragonstone. Won't give spoilers as to why, but it happens in one cutaway, right? So they say we're going to Dragonstone, and then the next scene they're at Dragonstone. Obviously, they didn't get there right away, but it's also, I mean, map-wise, it's not that far away, right? Let's check that, actually. Let's see. Can I... Okay. Accept. Nope. Give me... Okay, that one doesn't have anything marked there. This one probably definitely has it. I just shouldn't have skipped over that. What am I doing here? So King's Landing is here. And Dragonstone, if I'm not mistaken, is this one. Or is that? Dude, it has been a long time. Actually, since I've... Okay, yeah, that is Dragonstone. I was right. Okay, so yeah, from King's Landing to Dragonstone, you're right across the Blackwater Bay. And Dragonstone, for those of you who don't know, Dragonstone is where the Targaryens first moved to when they had to leave their homeland. They settled on Dragonstone. And then it was from Dragonstone where Aegon eventually started conquering, made King's Landing and all that. But map-wise, that's not far, especially by ship, right? It's a bay, so it's not the ocean. So you're not limited by as many factors for speed. Like in the ocean, obviously the waves are taller. That's going to impact your speed. In a bay, the waves are not as high, especially for ships. So as for this one, I don't want to open it because of spoilers, but you get the point. And let's check just a couple of these critic reviews. Let's see. TMT. Okay, so that has spoilers. I don't want that. And I don't want that. Let's see what. I just want to pick one of these. Oh, wait, no, you know what? Let's see what. Where was it? I just saw it before. Yeah, Film Hype. Let's see what they have to say. Let's get down. I don't want to go over that. Review and analysis. Okay, it seems clear that this second episode intends to focus mainly on the plot and weaving plots, letting the action explode in subsequent episodes. Yes. In full HBO signature style drama and deceit around the atmosphere that is created between. Can you get to the part where you tell us your review? Unlike the first episode, his screen space is much tighter, talking about Damon's character, like what I was saying before. What happened and seeing his retirement in Dragonstone, but every moment he appears leaves its mark and steals the show with charisma and methodism typical of an anti-hero, completely enigmatic and unpredictable, with this character determined not to give in to his claims to the throne and willing to do anything to regain his title. The show creates conditions for much more intricate and twisted clash than those. Yes, so that's what I was saying before, is so this is the scene where they the Dragonstone scene, and there's a scene before this, or no, after this actually. There's a scene after this that really pushes that point home of like when he's on screen, he takes over the whole show. For those of you who watched it, you'll know exactly what scene I'm talking about. It was at the end when he's meeting with somebody. Um, but let's see. With the technical sector that is confirmed as sumptuous, except for slight smudges in terms of special effects, House of the Dragons excellently tells its story. We await events to erupt into all their chaos. So those are 2 points that I agree with, definitely. And as for my personal opinion on the episode, the CGI is there. Like the dragons look cool. The crab, like the scenes with the crabs on the beaches and the crab feeder storyline that they're setting up, that looked intense, that looked sick. So visually the show is beautiful already, but it's accompanied by, so far, fantastic storytelling. If it continues that, we will see, but as for right now, it looks as if it will continue this trajectory. I think episode 3 and episode 4 will be the actual telling point. Because right now, it seemed like episode 1 was 60% of the story setup, and episode 2 was the rest of the story setup. Like, they didn't want to do like a 2-hour first episode, so they did episode 1 and 2 to set up all the story without rushing it, which I can appreciate because obviously everyone knows season 8 was so rushed. It's better for them to come into their second chance, like their chance to redeem themselves, to come into it with a slower pace than season 8 to set up the story of the season. But also, obviously, it's pilot episode, it has to set up the story of the show. But just in terms of a season, they need to play it safer like that. So I can appreciate taking 2 episodes to set up all the story. Some people might get annoyed by that because they just want to get into the action, but you do have to take into consideration the amount of money that goes into this and how they need to win back the fan support. So episode 3, we will see how can they start to intensify things, and then episode 4, I think we will see what do they do with that intensity, and that's going to be the telling point of how the rest of the show will go. So if they hit episode 3, like hit the ground running with it and knock that one out of the park, and episode 4 is a banger, then I can personally say that I'm going to give this show my full confidence until they give me reason not to. Obviously season 8 was such a disappointment, but I'm willing to give one second chance. which is something I'd given to like Star Wars and other projects, and they just consistently let us down. But if they can hit this one out of the park, I think Game of Thrones could honestly be the like pop culture savior if they nail this show and there's no issues, especially with you know Lord of the Rings coming out. It's crazy how Lord of the Rings should have more hype, but because of how poorly Amazon is handling it, it doesn't. And Game of Thrones is going to outperform and be more loved by the fans than the Lord of the Rings show. So that's it for our review of episode 2. I will see you guys next week, and let me know in the comments below what you thought about the Rogue Prince. Peace out.